Welcome to Fanatics Live, where we virtually connect you with your favorite stars and athletes right at home. Tonight, we will be meeting with fans, signing autographs, and engaging in live Q&A. Now, let's welcome our host.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fanatics Live. I'm your host, MC, bringing your favorite athletes and stars to you right at home. Be sure to leave comments and show love from wherever you're watching for a chance to have it featured on the broadcast. Tonight's show is special in that we are featuring a new exclusive product just released on site at fanatics.com, The Master's Plan, a book written by former Alabama and Tennessee great Bill Battle. Beyond the book, we will be catching up with Coach Battle, learning about his journey through playing sports, founding a business, and playing pivotal roles within the administration of college athletics. Let's give a warm Fanatics Live welcome to today's guest, Coach Bill Battle. Hey, Coach.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Good to be with you.
Good to have you here. I know this is pretty normal nowadays, meeting virtually, so we're just going to lean into it and give you a little time to get to know us, and we get to know you, so I'm excited for today's show.
That's perfect. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so I usually like to kick this off with some of my own questions, and then we'll move into some other people's questions. But I feel like they're pretty good. I feel like you'll like them, so I'll jump right in. This show is typically dedicated to athletes, partners, and voices who contribute to the world of sports that all of us love. And having been involved in so many ways, what do sports personally mean to you?
Well, I grew up on sports. My dad was athletic director, and he coached a while and head of the PE department, intramural department at Birmingham Southern College.
Oh, wow.
A small liberal arts college in Birmingham, but they had a great athletic program. And so I was raised from a little tyke, hanging around there and learning how to play every kind of sport there was. So it's always been a big part of my life. And football especially has been a big part of my life.
Yeah, I know. Being from the South, football is definitely what keeps us going, what gets us excited. Football season is right around the corner. And speaking of football, who were some of the biggest influences in your sports career, both as a player at Alabama and moving into your coaching days?
Well, Coach Bryant is one of the most meaningful mentors to me of anybody other than my parents. There were coaches on his staff that were great coaches, Gene Stallings and Bobby Drake Keith and Howard Snellenberger. And so I was under some great coaching leadership at Alabama. And I'd gone from a high school that won 6 games in 4 years to Alabama, where we won in my 3 varsity years, 29-2-2 and a conference and a national championship.
Yeah, there you go.
So I learned an awful lot at a very impressionable age, and that made me want to be a college football coach. And so that was what I tried to do after leaving Alabama. But I went on and had the opportunity to be a graduate assistant under Bud Wilkinson, another Hall of Fame coach at the University of Oklahoma. And then I got stationed. I was an ROTC graduate, so I had a 2-year military obligation. And while I was at Oklahoma, I heard that some of the former Oklahoma players had gotten assigned to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. And I didn't even know where West Point was, but I knew that Paul Dietzel, who had left LSU and shocked the world back in the early 60s, had gone back there. He had coached early there. And so I wrote Coach Dietzel a letter and got a response back and got my orders changed from an artillery outfit in Jasper, Alabama to the Army Athletic Association in West Point, New York. So that was one of the better moves of my life. And those 2 years were very meaningful, and a year under Coach Wilkinson and 2 years under Paul Dietzel were meaningful. And then I went to Tennessee as an assistant under Doug Dickey for 4 years, and he was a great mentor. And then when he left, they named me as the head coach. I spent 11 years in Knoxville, 4 as an assistant, 7 as a head coach.
Wow.
And so, and then, coming back to Alabama, in between that, we built the Collegiate Licensing Company. But
Right.
coming back to Alabama's athletic director was a great move, a great opportunity for me. I never wanted to be an athletic director, but at the time, I knew that if I didn't do it, I'd regret it, and I would have, and I'm really glad I did.
Yeah, it all came full circle there for you.
Yeah.
And it ended back at Alabama. It's a pretty cool story. And I didn't know you had ties to Birmingham Southern. So I have both ties to Alabama and Birmingham Southern. That's where my mom went. I know we talked about that.
Yeah.
So that's very cool.
Yeah, Birmingham Southern is a great little school. It needs some help now, but it's worth saving.
Yeah, I believe so. So I know you just mentioned the CLC, the Collegiate Licensing Company. So we wanted to ask you this question because we figured you would have a pretty cool take on it. You know, as we all know, the newest NCAA rules state that college players can now participate in endorsements and use their name, image, and likeness for personal profit. So we just wanted to know what your stance was on this new ruling, seeing so many sides of football, and how you think that will affect the CLC.
Well, I don't know that it will affect CLC much, if at all. I do think that it can be a disaster if somebody doesn't gain control, if it's all governed by individual schools or individual coaches, or
Gets to be a lot.
And I'm really hopeful there are smart people out there that can figure out the answer before the horse gets out of the barn. Mm-hmm. But I'm worried about where it's going to end up. I'm glad to see the players get some get the ability to make some money, but I don't know that it was that the intention was to go where it looks like it's headed now. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's definitely a large update out of college athletics. And I think we're all really curious to see what happens and see where it goes. But it's definitely changing up the game a little bit. It's kind of exciting things, stirring the pot.
Well, what I hope it doesn't do is disrupt. Football has carried the Olympic sports for years. Mm-hmm. And it's done a great thing for women's athletics, and women's athletics are marketable as well. But I'm afraid it'll be the top
right.
players and not the masses of the players. And
right.
But it could also be the teams, and I hope there's more team marketing and deals than just individuals for the great ones.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, we'll be very curious to watch that unfold as the years go on. Yeah. But let's get into the nitty-gritty of why we have you on today's show. Okay. This book, the master's plan that you have written. So you just talked briefly about your journey into where you are now, but what was the process like of actually writing a book, and what was hard, what was easy, and what did you learn about yourself along the way?
Well, I had some great people that worked for us at CLC, mm-hmm. and I had great files on our history, and they used to be mad at me because I would make them do quarterly reports for every school and tell them what we had done for them in the last quarter and what we're going to do for them in the next quarter. And as much of that was geared to the clients, it was geared to our staff to make them think about what they were going to do.
What's actually going on.
And so those reports turned out to be great biographical information that allowed me to be a whole lot more accurate in telling the story of CLC than otherwise I would have been. But there were key players on our staff that also contributed that we talked about. But it was interesting. I wrote it all out longhand. I
Oh,
was an
wow.
original cut and paster
Right.
back to CLC days, but it was cut. I always wrote stuff out longhand, and then when I'd proof it, I'd see this paragraph ought to go over here, and with scissors and Scotch tape, I'd move it around.
Rearrange it all.
So that's the way I did this book. And my assistant, Judy Tanner, was amazing in reading my writing and interpreting all my cutting and pasting and road maps going around. And so she's the hero in helping get this done. But, when I went back to Alabama, I'd always thought about writing a book and never really got around to it. When I was athletic director, and I got the call on a Sunday in January of 2013, and the next Sunday I decided to do it. And so I stayed in Tuscaloosa and sent Mary back home to figure out what to do with her house and the move and all the things that you do when you never expected to move from there in the first place. But one weekend, I went back home to Atlanta, and I was driving back to Tuscaloosa, and the phone rang. My cell phone rang, and it was a guy named Leroy Mullins, and Leroy was an assistant trainer for us at Tennessee, who I really liked, and he left to take the head job at Ole Miss. Under maybe Billy Brewer, but I know Steve Sloan came in and he worked for Steve. And so I hadn't talked to Leroy since he left years ago. And he said, "I'm so glad to see you be working with young people again." And I said, "Well, Leroy, that wasn't in my master plan." And he said, "Well, it was in the master's plan." And the more I thought about that, the more things that happened to me in so many different ways, with so many different people in so many different places, I didn't believe that could be an accident. And I believed that there is a plan. I believe you have to reach out and grab it and do something with it. But I do believe there's a plan for us in our lives. And so that's how that came about.
That's amazing. Well, I'm excited to learn more about it, but I talked with your team and I wanted to get to know, like, what's the structure of the book and what was his little artistic edge to it. And they said that you ended each chapter with a specific plan, a little master's plan of how to go from each chapter. So how did you come up with that idea? I thought that was great.
What I ended the chapter with, that I hope somebody that hadn't been at Alabama or Tennessee might enjoy from CLC, and a little section called Lessons Learned. And I went back through the chapter, and some of the things that were important to me during that chapter, I put out into the Lessons Learned section, hoping that might help somebody along the way.
I love that. So yeah, it's a part of your journey, but also a part of what was greater happening at that moment. So a good overall look at everything. And my last question about the book here is what is the overarching message that you hope to leave with any reader of your book?
Well, I think that it definitely, hopefully, has some appeal to Alabama fans and maybe Tennessee fans, and then maybe people in licensing in general, and maybe people just in business and how you start a business and then what you do when you sell it, and some of the things you need to look out for when you decide to sell a business. So hopefully there's enough meat in there, along with my life story and the very circuitous journey. If you think about it, going to Selma, Alabama after I left Tennessee for 6 years, at Disco Aluminum Products and Circle S Industries under Larry Striplin. We went from 2 companies doing $12 million a year to 10 companies doing $60 million a year. So it was a great business educational experience to me. But if you think about starting a national collegiate licensing or any trademark licensing company that went national from a construction materials company in Selma, Alabama, that would be a big stretch. You wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't know who would believe you there.
That's right. That's right. So it was a circuitous journey, and I wanted people to understand that. And that's, I think, part of the plan.
I love that. Well, I'm excited for people to be able to buy it. I'm glad it's out on the shelves. Before we keep going, I'm going to stop asking questions. We have a few people that wanted to participate in today's show. People that you know, some of your supporters, as well as some people on social media who wrote in some great questions. So I'm going to let go of the reins for a minute and pass it over to them. But up first, we have Tommy.
Hey, Coach Battle, Tommy Ford here. Congratulations on the book. You played under Coach Bryant at Alabama. You were a GA under Bud Wilkinson at Oklahoma. You were an assistant coach for Paul Dietzel at Army. What sort of leadership qualities did these 3 coaches share, and how did they differ in their leadership styles? I look forward to hearing your answer. Good luck on the book. Roll Tide.
Hear that again. I couldn't.
Yeah, I noticed you were having trouble hearing the question here, but I will repeat it for you. He just wanted to know what sort of leadership qualities that Coach Bryant, Coach Wilkinson, and Dietzel all shared, and maybe how did they differ? What did you notice about them?
Yeah, that's a great question. They were all very different in personality, but they all had the same goal, and they all went about it differently, which was, when I left Alabama, I knew how Coach Bryant did things, and that was definitely one way. But Coach Wilkinson was an English major, and he was at the end of his career and had mellowed quite a bit, but still a great coach. And Coach Dietzel was a more artistic guy, a more, more creative guy, I guess, and use those talents to motivate players. And then Coach Dickey was different than all of those. But again, they all won championships, and they all knew how to get there. And they had, the leadership ability to rally the troops, to get the players to believe in what they were doing, and more important, the sales ability to recruit players, good players that could compete with their toughest competition, to be able to be successful against their competitors. And so they all had those leadership traits that let them get along with the fans, the administration, and keep the team together and recruit good players.
Yeah, definitely important. But at the end of the day, they all want to win, and that's what they have in common. That's the whole point.
Well, that's what they're paid to do.
Yep. Well, we won't roll the second video just in case you can't hear it, but I do know what Charlie wanted to ask you. He said that this weekend there are 4 statues being unveiled at the University of Tennessee that represent trailblazers of the Tennessee football program, one of them being Condredge Holloway. And he wanted to know, how did you know that he had all the intangibles to be the first African-American quarterback, not only for the program at Tennessee, but the SEC?
Well, that's a good question. The answer is I didn't, but I did know he was a great athlete. And our coach, Ray Trail, who was the chief recruiter of Condredge, believed that he could play college quarterback. He was a great high school quarterback, but he was an all-state baseball and all-state basketball player as well. He asked me if he was good enough could he play quarterback? And I said, certainly, if you're good enough, you can play quarterback. And that was that. He had met with Coach Bryant, and Coach Bryant told him that he wanted him to come play, but Alabama wasn't ready for a quarterback back in 1971, 70 or 71. And Conrad said he appreciated the honesty and moved on. And so I told him he could. And interestingly enough, when he got there, it wasn't long before, wasn't but a few days on the practice field that we saw that he could play quarterback. And as that season went on, we had an open date, and back then the if freshman had been eligible, he could have really helped us, because we went through 4 quarterbacks injury-wise in 1971. And but Condridge, we had an open date, and the freshman team played Notre Dame, and they had a great quarterback that I can't remember his name, but he went on to play in the NFL, and so it was on our open date, and we'd normally have 2,000 or 3,000 people come to a freshman game, because nobody cared about that. But there were 31,000 that showed up at that game.
Wow.
And Condridge lit them up. It was maybe it was Terry Henready, I can't remember. Anyway, it was a back and forth game, and we ended up winning, and there was never any doubt after that Condridge couldn't play quarterback.
Sealed the deal. That's a great story. I love that. Well, sorry, Charlie, that we couldn't get your video rolling, but didn't want to risk any audio issues. Our last question came from Phil on social media. He replied to us on Instagram, and he asked, how do you feel about Oklahoma and Texas entering the SEC? That was some fun news coming out pretty recently.
Well, I'm a great fan of Greg Sankey, and I think that anything he wants to do, I think there's good reason behind it. He's one of my heroes. I enjoyed the SEC AD meetings before he got to be the AD, and then certainly after he got to be the AD. But it'll definitely be interesting to see the Texas A&M rivalry come back, and a lot of the things that you would anticipate coming back. Nobody knows what's coming back yet till it happens, but that positions the SEC a little bit differently than they were positioned before. So what will be really interesting is to see what the Big Ten and Big 12 and Pac-12 do, and where all the expansion might go. And so, I think we got to wait and see how it all shakes out. But I think it certainly strengthens the Southeastern Conference.
I think so too. I think that competitive drive we already have is just going to get that much higher. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to take a short break from questions, and I'm going to roll a video from today's sponsor.
Okay.
Sports fans are gearing up at Fanatics.com, the world's largest collection of officially licensed fan gear. From all the leagues, teams, and players you love. Shop now and get today's special offer. Fanatics.com. Officially licensed everything.
So today's show is brought to you by Fanatics, your one-stop shop for officially licensed fan gear. Be sure to shop today by league, team, or player on Fanatics.com. So speaking of Fanatics.com, that is where we can direct people to buy your book, The Master's Plan. We have 500 autographed copies of The Master's Plan on Fanatics.com today. Simply type Bill Battle into the search bar, and it'll be one of the first items on your screen. Again, this is a limited run of 500 autographed copies, so do not miss your opportunity to buy. But I wanted to ask you, where can local shoppers purchase the non-autographed copies? I'm sure you got things around and some information to share.
Well, Barnes & Noble in Tuscaloosa definitely carries them. You can order them through Whitman Publishing, and you can order them through Amazon.com, or 3 places that you can get them right away.
Beautiful. I love that. Well, everybody be sure to go out today, and let's learn more about sports and business, and maybe how to keep your thoughts organized, your mind clear, and trust the process and trust the master's plan ahead. So I like to always end my shows with something fun, something a little challenging. I'm sure you've been up for challenges your whole life, so this one shouldn't scare you. So don't worry too bad. The questions aren't that hard. We're going to play some college football trivia if you're ready.
I'm not a great trivia guy, but go ahead.
Okay, we'll jump right in. What is the highest scoring Iron Bowl?
Wow. I'm not sure. I know that in 2014, when I came back as AD, we had the wildest game in Bryant-Denny Stadium that I ever saw. We got behind by about, 2 or 3 touchdowns, and then came out and scored 5 straight and scored 60. And Gus said he was mad because he should have scored 60. But there was a lot of points scored in that game. I don't know if that was the one or not, but
ding, ding,
I was
ding.
there for that.
You're correct. You're correct. In 2014, Alabama beat Auburn 55-44, totaling 90 points. I remember that game distinctly. I was late to school the next day and I got a ticket, but I was up all night with my dad running around the neighborhood. We were so excited. We could not believe what we had just watched, but I remember that one specifically.
Yeah, that was a wild one. We scored 5 straight and took the lead, which was incredible.
Yeah. Okay, next question. What is the official fight song for the University of Tennessee?
I don't know the name of it, and I don't know if it hadn't been replaced by Rocky Top, but if anybody asked, they would probably say Rocky Top.
Well, yeah, that goes right into the answer. So it's not Rocky Top, but it's technically called Down the Field, a classic song that they've played for many, many years. But like you said, everybody thinks Rocky Top is the official fight song. So this one I know you'll know. Which school was the most recent addition to the SEC?
Well, it was either Texas A&M or Missouri, and I would say it was Missouri.
Yes, sir. It was Missouri. They joined the SEC in 2012. And I will say, I loved every time that they came to Ole Miss when I worked there. They were a fun fan base for sure. And they brought a lot of interesting memories for me. I loved them spelling out Mizzou. I was like, we get it. We know how to spell your school's name. But I thought it was so funny having them come along for the ride. All right.
They were really good, and they were better in football for the first couple of years than anybody thought they were.
They were real good. Yeah, they had a great marketing program too. They came up with a lot of good content. I remember being so impressed with what they brought.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is, who is the winningest coach in college football history?
Oh, gosh. Well, for a while, I'm going to say Bobby Bowden.
He's top 5. Bobby Bowden is top 5, but the actual winningest coach is John Gagliardi.
Okay.
Rest in peace, Bobby Bowden. I think he had 392 wins, something crazy like that. Just an amazing number. But there's a lot of winningest coaches. Bear Bryant's up there. It's hard to beat John Gagliardi, though.
Where did he coach?
I think he had some at Minnesota, and he was up in northern states there, but he held on to the reins. I think he had about 400 plus wins.
Was he Division I, all Division I?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. Okay. I didn't know him. I didn't know that one.
Well, I haven't tripped you up too bad yet. So next question, who is the most recent former Tennessee player to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Well, that's got to be Peyton Manning this year.
Correct. Yep. He was inducted in August. We've had a lot of time to talk with Peyton through a lot of our Fanatics events. He's awesome. So we were really excited to see him. He gave a wonderful speech, and that was a cool moment in history to witness for sure.
Yeah, he is a great guy.
All right. And my last question has no correct answer. So don't worry about the answer. I just want to know, who do you think's winning the national championship this year?
Well, I don't want to put any pressure on Coach Saban, but I think Alabama will win it.
I hope so.
It's quite possible they won't. And, the stars have to line up. You have to be lucky and good to win all your games. And, things don't go right in a lot of games. We lost to Ole Miss a couple times, fumbled 5 times in the first game, and then we got beat. But Alabama has a really good team. They got a lot of good players. They got a lot of question marks. They lost, as they do every year.
A lot of good players.
A lot of good players, a lot of good coaches. And Coach Saban does an amazing job of replacing both year after year. So he is the best at what he does, and I'm hoping he can do it again.
I'll give you a funny story to end things. So when I was choosing to go to school growing up in Birmingham, it was Alabama or Auburn. Everybody went to one of those schools, but I wanted to do something different. So I'm going to go to Ole Miss. And my dad was like, that's fine. I mean, you got to tell your grandfather. You got to tell him. So I went and had a conversation with my granddad, let him know what was going on. He said, well, that's all right. You're not going to a school that's ever going to beat Alabama. And then, of course, when I was there, we beat Alabama twice. And those were some pretty awkward Thanksgiving and Christmas reunions, but he got over it. He was glad that I went there and had a good time.
Well, that's good.
I'm still an Alabama fan. I love the SEC. My heart lies with the SEC, of course, but it's a really fun division. And you seem to have learned a lot about it and a lot about sports just along the way. So I appreciate you sharing some of the stories that you had today. And again, everybody go out and buy the Master's Plan on Fanatics.com. And he said Amazon, Barnes & Noble in Tuscaloosa. And what was the publishing company site?
Whitman, Whitman.
Whitman. So you can buy the unautographed copies there, or you can get an autographed version on site at Fanatics.com today. So I wanted to thank you for your time, Coach Battle, for our guests who submitted some questions, and all of our viewers who tuned in tonight. We've had such a great time getting to know you. What's your master's plan for the rest of the evening, Coach Battle? What you got planned for your Monday night?
Well, I'm going to get on my stationary bike for a little while and ride that and try to keep moving forward and trying to get stronger and breathing better. And I've got some lung issues still, but I'm working on them, and they're getting better, and I'm glad about that. But I got to keep working on it. So I'm
good.
Keep working on that.
Keep working on it. Get stronger. Stay safe. I'm glad to hear you living that healthy lifestyle. So we appreciate you dialing in today, and we will catch up with you soon.
Good. Thanks for the interview. I enjoyed it.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
You did a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, everybody. That is the end of tonight's show. Be sure to follow us on social media at Fanatics for updates, or visit fanatics.com/live to view any upcoming appearances and watch previous broadcasts. Up next on the show docket is 49ers legend, Mr. Joe Montana, on September 16th. We will have fans dialing in live, asking the comeback kid their best questions, and he'll be signing autographs for each of them. This is a Fan Cash card exclusive event where all guests dialing in are Fan Cash Rewards card holders. So be sure to apply for yours today by texting Fan Events to 94323 and be a part of these potential perks. As always, stay safe and good night.